At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is. This is a serious problem for Democrats. Less than 1 in 4 Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be an American. 54% say they're embarrassed by it. Embarrassed? Like America's your mom picking you up at school? You're embarrassed to be an American? Well, guess what? The feeling's mutual, because you have no perspective. Is America perfect? No, of course not. No country is.
Bill Maher seems closer than ever to abandoning his political tribe. Not because he's changed, but because the progressive movement is veering into uncharted extremes. On a recent episode of Real Time, he unleashed a blistering critique, zeroing in on figures like AOC and her fellow Democrats. His message was clear. Their actions increasingly reflect a troubling disregard for the country they claim to represent. Maher has never been one to hold back, but this latest rant, it hit a whole new gear. Buckle up, and if you're not already, subscribed, now's a good time, because we're diving deep into a moment that might just signal a turning point. Credit where it's due. Some Democrats are finally calling it like it is. Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin didn't mince words when she labeled her party weak and woke, urging them to reclaim strength, confidence, and yes, the American flag itself. Honestly, this shift is fascinating and overdue. We're watching a political reckoning unfold as Democrats begin to confront the dysfunction in their own backyard. One by one, they're breaking from the pack and speaking truths that were once whispered, if spoken at all. This is the very warning we've been sounding here for ages. Unchecked wokeness is spinning out of control. If reason and moderation don't make a comeback soon, we risk losing any shared ground for sensible discourse. You could practically see Maher's relief as a fellow Democrat broke free from the ideological echo chamber and dared to challenge her own team. And if this episode was any indication, Maher's only warming up.
Here's the thing. Senator Slotkin is a serious person. She's a former CIA agent. You know how every streaming action movie now is about a soccer mom who used to be in the CIA? Okay, that's really her. So we should listen to her because she's right. Lady Deadpool is right.
This isn't just more noise from the political circus. It's a wake-up call that's shaking the system. When even dyed-in-the-wool liberals like Bill Maher and Senator Elissa Slotkin start sounding more like weary moderates than party loyalists, you know the wheels are coming off. The storyline is no longer holding together, and even those who helped shape it are starting to admit it's cracking apart. Maher and Slotkin aren't outliers either. They're the tip of a growing iceberg. Quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, more voices on the left are beginning to echo concerns that conservatives have been raising for years. The progressive movement has drifted far off course. What once may have been about progress has become, in many cases, a mess of extremes and contradictions. And when someone like Maher, who's built a career out of unfiltered honesty, starts calling out his own side, you can feel the discomfort ripple through the ranks. His latest focus? A troubling snapshot of the younger Democratic base. He's about to drop statistics that should set off alarms. Fewer than 25% of Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be American. Over half openly say they're ashamed of it. Ashamed. Like this country is some awkward relative showing up uninvited. But here's the thing. If you're embarrassed to be part of something, don't be surprised when it stops showing up for you. That mutual disconnect, it's growing. And it's not just about patriotism. It's about what happens when a movement loses its roots and forgets what brought people together in the first place. Perspective. It's what's missing in today's political conversation. Is America flawless? Absolutely not. But expecting perfection from any country is unrealistic. What's truly baffling, though, is how quickly pride in the nation seems to vanish for some the moment power shifts hands. The second Donald Trump enters the frame, many Democrats act as if the entire country is suddenly beyond redemption. The double standard is glaring. The same voices that demand unity often turn to division when it suits them. When they're in control, it's about healing and coming together. But when they lose, it's all fury, chaos, and blame. The idea of unity becomes less of a value and more of a strategy, used only when convenient. Behind the slogans and sound bites, it's not about bringing people together. It's about holding on to power. Now take a moment to really hear what Bill Maher is saying. He lays out the facts, ones many young Americans never hear. Under Donald Trump, the U.S. is still leading the world in ways that matter deeply to progressives. 14 million businesses in America are owned by women. Black women, in particular, are launching startups at a faster pace than white men or women. LGBTQ+ rights? They're not just legal, they're thriving. Nearly half of all gay Americans own property. In America, they buy buildings. In some parts of the world, they're still being thrown off of them. And yet, despite that, certain media outlets keep pushing the tired narrative that the LGBTQ+ community is under constant siege. It's not about real threats anymore. It's about stoking fear, even when the facts paint a far more hopeful picture. So maybe it's time to step back, drop the political performance, and actually appreciate how far the country has come, without twisting the truth to fit an agenda. Let's talk about what's really happening here. The moment Donald Trump steps into office, some pundits and commentators lose all grip on reality. Suddenly, they claim women are being stripped of their businesses, and the country is backsliding into some dystopian version of 1964. It's not journalism, it's manufactured. Panic. They're not interested in the truth. What they want is rage, clicks, and headlines that keep people glued to the screen and anxious for the next outrage. It's emotional manipulation dressed up as reporting, a non-stop loop of selective storytelling, designed to make people feel like the sky is always falling. But not everyone is buying into the spin. Bill Maher, for one, sees right through it. He points out something we often overlook: all those cringe old movies. They feel outdated because America changed. The culture grew. We progressed, far more than most other countries have. Look, at Congress, it's now the most racially and ethnically diverse in U.S. history. It's a colorful spectrum of representation. Sure, it might not always be effective in governance, but it's a sign of how far we've come. And in everyday life, the shift is just as clear. Turn on any TV and you'll see commercials proudly featuring interracial couples, even in places where it feels wildly out of place in the storyline. That's not regression, that's normalization. Yet here's where the real challenge lies. For Democrats, their youngest voters, the very group they rely on, are turning against their own culture. They don't just reject America's flaws, they've lost faith in its foundations. In a bizarre twist, many are sympathizing with foreign extremist groups, mistaking radicals for freedom fighters. Some students on elite campuses are chanting about martyrdom like it's a noble cause, but do we blame them entirely? Not really. They've been shaped by a generation of older progressives whose hatred for Trump has bled into a broader disdain for American ideals. It's not just the man they despise anymore, it's the entire system he represents. That kind of bitterness can't help but trickle down. What we're seeing isn't just a political divide, it's a generational reckoning, fueled by confusion, half-truths, and a media machine that thrives on emotional whiplash. And unless we start separating facts from fear, rhetoric from reality, the damage won't just be political, it'll be cultural. What began as political outrage has slowly transformed into something far more corrosive, a generational disdain for the very country they live in. Instead of passing down critical thinking, many older progressives have handed their kids a legacy of cynicism. Pride in national progress has been replaced with resentment. The idea of America as a place of opportunity is now dismissed in favor of portraying it as the root of all global injustice. But someone needs to level with these kids. America isn't perfect. No country is. But it's not the dystopia they've been led to believe. Women here have rights. Religious freedom exists. Protest isn't a death sentence. It's a constitutional right. We still hold elections. Flawed? Yes. But functional and worth preserving. The same can't be said of places where dissent is met with imprisonment or worse. Yet somehow, at Coachella, this year, cheers broke out when a rap group flashed "Free Palestine" across the stage. That's one thing. But the darker twist? The crowd also embraced the phrase, "globalize the intifada." Let that sink in. People applauding the easy idea of spreading violent uprisings as if it's a trendy slogan, not a call to chaos. This isn't activism. It's a warped cosplay of revolutions they don't understand, inspired more by shock value than substance. And where did this start? It didn't just appear out of thin air. It's the result of years of ideological grooming, from influencers, academics, and yes, political leaders who should know better. Instead of offering guidance, many in the Democratic Party have chosen to stoke emotional fires. They've embraced narratives that flatter their base and fuel outrage, even when it means blurring the line between freedom fighters and terror groups. Turn on the TV, and you'll see it everywhere. Facts take a back seat to feelings. Israel, a sovereign state defending itself, is painted as a villain, while extremist factions are recast as brave underdogs. It's a stunning reversal of reality, a complete breakdown of moral clarity. To his credit, Bill Maher doesn't shy away from naming the source of the confusion. He holds Democratic leaders accountable for enabling this twisted narrative. Take, for example, the recent AOC and Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho. A Palestinian flag was thrown over an American flag, and the crowd cheered. No one on stage pushed back. No one said, "This isn't justice, this is disrespect." Instead, silence. Because speaking up might cost them politically. That moment wasn't just symbolic, it was revealing. When patriotism becomes controversial, and extremism is met with applause, something has gone terribly wrong. And while many young people have been swept up in this chaos, it's not really their fault. They've been taught to see America not as a work in progress, but as a failed state. But progress requires honesty, not hostility. And leadership means guiding people toward clarity, not exploiting their confusion. Until those with influence are willing to draw clear lines between activism and anarchy, between real freedom and reckless imitation, this dangerous trend will only grow louder. When young progressives rally behind causes without fully understanding the realities they're all endorsing, it raises serious questions, not just about their education, but about the silence from the leaders guiding them. In parts of Gaza and other Palestinian territories, women can't vote, can't show their hair, and in some cases, not even their eyes. LGBTQ+ individuals live in constant danger, in some cases, punished by death. Is this truly the version of justice young Democrats think they're championing? This isn't activism. It's a dangerous blend of ignorance and misplaced idealism, masked as moral clarity. And the most troubling part? The very people in power, those who claim to lead, with compassion and wisdom, are saying nothing. Their silence is deafening, not because they don't know better, but because they fear losing political capital. If Democratic leaders continue to let this narrative go unchallenged, that America is irredeemable and regimes like Hamas are somehow righteous, then the party's future is on thin ice. As Representative Alyssa Slotkin recently pointed out, there's a growing perception that liberal leadership has become soft and spineless, particularly among white progressives who, in trying to overcorrect for the past, now enable all manner of ideological confusion. Last election cycle, we watched the party throw its weight behind fringe ideas, claiming men can get pregnant, that traditional discipline is oppressive, that late-term abortion is untouchable, and that anyone can change. Biological sex with a declaration. Critics spoke up, including centrists and moderate liberals, but they were mocked as backwards or out of touch. Now, as the left begins to flirt with even more extreme positions, including justifying groups with violent ideologies under the guise of resistance, it's not just a political misstep. It's a moral implosion. The electorate has noticed, and they're not amused. It's not about partisanship anymore. It's about common sense and ethical clarity. And here's where Bill Maher, once a darling of the liberal elite, brings it all crashing down. Democrats, he says, need to stop treating every idea from their youngest voters as sacred. Not every youthful opinion is wise. Not every radical proposal is revolutionary. Sometimes it's just naive, or worse, dangerous. The core of the problem? The party's energy, its voice, its pulse, is being driven by the very people least equipped to lead it. The angry and impressionable youth, unchecked by wisdom and emboldened by applause. Unless Democratic leadership finds the courage to say no when the ideas stop making sense, they won't just lose voters. They'll lose their moral compass, and possibly their future. Romanticizing extremists while enjoying the comforts of American life is more than ironic. It's deeply disconnected. Young progressives cheering for groups like Hamas need a reality check. The world they idolize is not one they'd survive in. The freedom to criticize, to protest, to demand a milkshake via an app and have it delivered to your door, all of that is made possible by the very American system they claim to reject. It's easy to shout slogans from the safety of a free society. But let's be clear, the values of groups like Hamas are entirely incompatible with the lives these young activists lead. If they spent even a week living under those conditions, where free speech is silenced, dissent punished, and basics, liberties stripped, they'd understand how misguided their sympathies are. Democrats, if they want to remain relevant, must abandon the hollow virtue signaling and ideological fantasies that have overtaken their platform. This isn't about being woke. It's about being honest. They need to return to practical, grounded ideas that resonate with the people they claim to serve. Working-class Americans, parents, small business owners, real people with real concerns, not just hashtags. More importantly, they need to start speaking truth to the next generation. Stop sugarcoating harsh realities. Stop selling utopian illusions under the banners of justice and inclusion. If the party continues to coddle rather than educate, to placate rather than lead, they risk alienating not just conservatives, but, increasingly, moderates and disillusioned young voters who are beginning to see the cracks. The discontent is growing. Even in once reliable strongholds like the Black community, where voters are beginning to question the decades-long allegiance to a party that often delivers more promises than progress. They're demanding accountability, tangible results, and policies that actually improve lives, not just clever rhetoric. If the Democratic Party doesn't hit the brakes and rethink its direction, it won't just lose the next election cycle. It risks losing entire communities, and with them, the very soul of its support. At this pace, Democrats are handing Republicans a victory on a silver platter. It's like watching someone pack for a lifelong stay at a Buddhist monastery only to tap out before sunrise. The party talks big, but when it comes to real-world durability, the cracks are showing fast. Come 2028, the GOP might not even need a full campaign strategy. They could coast to victory with little more than a wave and a smile, thanks to the Democrats' self-inflicted wounds. Every policy misfire, every out-of-touch soundbite, and every embrace of radical identity politics is driving voters away. Not just conservatives, but disillusioned moderates, and even lifelong liberals. What was once a political powerhouse is becoming a fractured coalition, torn apart by internal culture wars, endless virtue signaling, and an unwillingness to deal with the actual problems people care about. Instead of fighting for affordable living, secure neighborhoods, and reliable jobs, they're caught up in endless debates about gender semantics and ideological purity tests. Meanwhile, Republicans are planting their flag on solid ground, talking about safety, stability, and economic common sense. And whether you agree with them or not, those are the messages winning hearts and minds, especially among voters who are tired of the noise and just want their lives to work again. If Democrats don't pivot soon, if they don't reconnect with the everyday Americans they once represented, they won't just lose elections. They'll lose their voice, their influence, their seat at the national table. The country won't wait for them to sort themselves out. It will move on without them. There's a saying, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. But instead of setting down the shovel, the far left seems to be ordering a bulldozer. The deeper they go, the harder it'll be to climb back. And eventually, voters may not bother tossing them a rope. Even when a few voices on the left attempt some humility, saying maybe they should stop calling Trump supporters stupid, there's always that quiet subtext. We still think they are, just hush about it. That kind of condescension isn't just arrogant, it's politically suicidal. The Democratic Party is walking a dangerous road, one paved with denial, ideological extremes, and moral confusion. Instead of facing the real-world concerns of everyday Americans, they've become tangled in narratives that appeal to Twitter mobs, but alienate the broader public. They've lost touch with the people they once claimed to champion, young voters, minorities, even lifelong progressives, many of whom are now looking elsewhere for leadership grounded in reality. Meanwhile, Republicans barely have to try. The opposition is busy digging its own grave. With every misstep and every tone-deaf crusade, Democrats are shedding support faster than they can spin their next soundbite. If they don't course-correct soon, it won't just be a few elections slipping through their fingers. It'll be the public's trust, possibly for a generation. Americans are clearly signaling what they want: truth, clarity, and practical leadership. And right now, they're not seeing that from the left. History tends to frown on those who traded facts for applause and lost themselves in the echo chamber. That's where we'll leave it for now. If this message struck a chord, hit that like button and subscribe for more bold takes that cut through the noise. Share this with someone who's ready to see past the spin, because it's going to take all of us to challenge the narrative and bring some sanity back into the conversation. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.